joining us now to talk about all of this and so much more, and also that big new interview that Kamala Harris did. Joining us is Republican New York Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis. She joins us now. Congresswoman, before we get into obviously all of the stuff on Afghanistan and so much more, I want to get your reaction to Kamala Harris's first public interview since the debate last night. It was a sit-down one-on-one with the local ABC television Philadelphia. And I want to play a little clip and get your reaction because it is pretty stunning.
When we talk about bringing down prices and making life more affordable for people, what are one or two specific things you have in mind for that?
Well, I'll start with this. I grew up a middle-class kid. My mother raised my sister and me. She worked very hard. She was able to finally save up enough money to buy our first house when I was a teenager. I grew up in a community of hardworking people, you know, construction workers and nurses and teachers. And I try to explain to some people who may not have had the same experience, you know, but a lot of people will relate to this. You know, I grew up in a neighborhood of folks who were very proud of their lawn. You know?
Congresswoman Malliotakis, that was stunning to me. Your reaction watching that?
I mean, that's unbelievable, really. She talks about her lawn. Look, people know that, I hope they know, that the reason why they're paying so much today versus what they were paying for gas and food under President Trump is because of the anti-energy policies of Kamala Harris, of Joe Biden, and of their inflationary spending for the first 2 years that they had complete control, Democrats, and went on a really bad spending spree. That's the reason why they're paying so much, because we need energy for everything, to transport food, to manufacture things. And obviously, when you crush American domestic energy, that's going to impact everything. It's also why people's utility bills are so high. So if she wants to actually be helpful, which she won't because she's been part of the problem, you would actually reverse a lot of the policies that the Biden-Harris administration would put in place. And that's why we need President Trump in office, because we were paying $20 less to fill up a tank of gas under President Trump. We were having much lower interest rates. Right now, people are paying the highest in 2 decades for their credit card bills, or if they want to buy a home and take a mortgage, which obviously has made it so unaffordable for Americans.
Yeah, and that's interesting because she was asked some of that, like, how would you bring prices down? And you could hear her answer again, talking about the lawn. Then she was asked, how is she different than Biden? And she said, well, I'm not Biden, you know, and then her difference was, you know, incremental and barely explainable. Before I let you go also, Congresswoman, I want to get your thoughts also back to the Afghanistan withdrawal, because that report really was scathing. And essentially what the House committee came out with and said, it showed that there was no plan, no foresight, and also that President Biden, as we knew from some of the generals who had to testify, really kind of made this decision almost on his own, despite them saying, let's leave some troops there. Let's keep Bagram. They didn't do either. Your reaction, and what do you think the repercussions of this will be?
Look, one of the biggest mistakes was closing Bagram Air Base without evacuating our citizens first. That is like a common sense thing, right? You would make sure that everyone is safely evacuated, then you would shut down the airbase. What happened was, because they prematurely did that, you had 5,000 ISIS-K and al-Qaeda terrorists who were released onto the streets. And one of them went to Abbey Gate and was the person who set off that suicide bomb that killed the 13 American soldiers and about 140 Afghan civilians. So that's number one. That was the biggest mistake that cost us lives. But the other thing was leaving our equipment behind. Wasn't that a punch in the gut to Americans to see the Taliban parading in American equipment? $7 billion worth of equipment, as a matter of fact, they left behind. And that really is, I believe, the moment, that was the signal that was sent to Russia, to Hamas, to Iran, that is displaying American weakness on the world stage. It was an embarrassment, and it was Joe Biden and Kamala Harris that brought us that horrific moment that I believe was worse than anything in American history, including the evacuation from Vietnam. So what I would say is we need to get back on the world stage as a powerful nation, and peace through strength, not appeasement of adversaries. That's why we need President Donald Trump, so we are respected once again. Nobody invaded any other country when President Trump was in office. As soon as he left, they saw weakness with President Biden and Kamala Harris, and that is why we are seeing these conflicts around the world.
Yeah, and so many people taking advantage of this moment, too, just as you said, seeing weakness or seeing that withdrawal, I think, just cavalcaded, I think, so many of the responses that we've seen since. Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, great to have you here. Always love having you on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for much more, let's bring in